This is custom theme development from scratch, part 5. We're going to continue to work on our theme.json file, and this time we're going to be concentrating on controlling the layout of the content area for our website. This will include things such as widths, padding, and margin. In order to control things like width, padding, and margin of the content area in our WordPress block theme, we will use our theme.json file, and we'll be using a few different keys so that we can target specific areas of the page. We're going to be using styles.layout in our theme.json file. This is going to define layout rules such as content width, wide width, padding, and alignment. This will allow us to set global layout behavior for blocks that support layout options. These are things such as groups and columns. Here's an example of some code. In this example, the key is styles, and then we have a sub-object or key of layout inside of styles. We are targeting content size. This sets the default maximum width for normal content blocks. These are things like paragraphs. And then we also have wideSize. This will set the max width for blocks aligned with wide. Typically, these are things like groups or images. Currently, our website looks like this, and as you can see, the page content is spanning the entire width of the screen. It also is kind of shoved over here on the left. There's no spacing, and it just looks crowded, as well as the line length gets far too long. So let's go into our theme.json file and see about modifying this. Here's the file that we've been working on so far. And what we're going to do here is we're going to modify some of this code and add some additional controls to the theme.json file. Just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to collapse the typography section, which is what we were working on previously. And as you can see, we have keys of settings, styles, and template parts, along with subcategories inside some of these areas. What we're going to do here is we're going to add some new content that will allow us to control the width of the elements on our page. I'm going to start off in the settings area of WordPress, and we're going to make a new subcategory. This can really go anywhere, but I think I'll put this before appearance just because it makes the most sense to me. We're going to create a layout key. I'll encapsulate this inside of quotes. I'm going to set my colon, and then I'll open my curly braces. And don't forget to put the comma since we are going to have other keys that follow this. Inside of layout, I'm going to define two properties. The first one is going to be content size. And whenever we work in JSON, this needs to be encapsulated inside of the quotes. Then I'm going to have my colon, and then we're going to add a content width of 800 pixels. I'll put a comma here, and then we're going to set the wide size, and we'll assign this a value of 1200 pixels. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some additional code in the styles portion of our page. So once again, we already have a few elements here. We have typography and we have elements. What we'll do here is inside styles, we're going to add a general category of layout. I'll encapsulate this inside of quotes, add my colon and my curly braces, and inside layout, we're going to add content size and wide size. This is going to be the exact same code that we added above. I'll explain in just a moment why we have to do this twice and what the difference is between the settings layout and the styles layout area. If we save the page here and we go back to the front end portion of WordPress and we refresh our rendered page, you're going to see that now the content is centered within the page and it has a maximum width. So if we open up our inspector and we check out one of these areas, you can see this is my paragraph. It currently has a width of 800 pixels. If I resize my page down and make it more responsive, that will go ahead and shrink. At this point, we need to add some additional padding, but we'll take care of that in a little while. At the widescreen though, you can see that this is going to be by default the 800 pixels. What I would like to reiterate to you is the fact that we have used layout of content size and wide width under styles, and we've also used layout of content size and wide width under settings. So why do we need both of these here, and what is the difference? Settings.layout defines how layout options behave in the WordPress editor. It basically tells WordPress what layout features are available to use, and it makes them available in the site editor. The purpose is it enables layout support. It makes these sizes available for blocks like group, cover, etc. And it provides the default layout structure that WordPress is going to use when no custom layout is applied. Styles.layout defines the visual default styling for layout on the front end and in the editor. It applies the actual CSS values to our theme's layout. The purpose is that it adds layout styles to the front end and editor. It makes sure content gets sized and aligned as expected, and it applies the styles that match the structure declared in settings.layout. I've created a table for you that clearly identifies how settings.layout and styles.layout differ. Here I've identified the purpose of each of these. Settings.layout enables and defines layout capabilities. Style.layout applies default layout styling. The scope of settings.layout is in the editor behavior, so it's what options are shown. An example use of settings.layout is it will determine if wide width is available. With styles.layout, it's what actually renders, and an example use is it applies a maximum width for WP block elements. You always want to define both settings.layout and styles.layout to ensure that your layout works consistently in both the editor and in the front end. So now that you understand that settings.layout defines the layout available to users in the editor, while styles.layout applies default stylings to blocks and content in the front end and the editor. If we go into the backend portion of WordPress and edit one of these areas, so here is our page, and what we'll do here is we'll just create a new element. I'm going to create a element before, and let's just make this a group. I'm going to go ahead and simply set a background color, and we'll just pick one of our default colors, and let's put a paragraph inside. I will center this paragraph, and with the group selected, we have this align area, which allows us to specify the alignment. So by default, the width is going to be set to 800, but we also have this wide width, and you can see that this is going to expand the page content to be 1200. And we also have full width, which is full width. This appears to be working fine in the back end, but if we save any of these changes and go to the front end and refresh, you're going to find that this area is not going to expand in the same way that it does in the back end. And part of this reason is because of the nesting of WordPress and the built-in CSS that is being applied to these elements. In order to change this, we need to add a little bit of custom CSS to our theme. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll go into our custom theme. I'm going to go to style.css, and let's go ahead and create the styles that we need in order to resolve the issue that we are having. I'll make a comment, and then I'm going to create the various rules that we need to do this. The first rule is going to target several of our WordPress-based classes. This is going to be a group selector that targets entry content, WP block post content, and WP block group is layout constrained. I'm going to set the max width to 100% and make this important. as well as set the regular width to 100% and make this important. And I've added some comments so that you know what these are doing. We need to create 2 more rules. The next one is going to ensure that the align width block will be able to reach the 1200 pixels that we've specified. So I'm going to target WP block group dot align wide, and we're setting the max width to 1200 pixels, the regular width to 100%, margin left and right is set to auto. This will allow the element to stay centered on the page. And then finally, we're going to want to create some rules for the full width. Our selector is going to be WP block group dot align full. And once again, I'm using a width. This time I'm setting it to be 100 VW for viewport width, margin left of 0 and margin right of 0. If we save our CSS file and go back to the front end part of WordPress and refresh, you can see that this is now spanning full width. Now, the downside of this method is that the page content is also spanning to full width. In order to fix this, we simply need to go into our editor, and I'm going to select everything that is underneath this blue bar. We're going to group these items together. I'll use the keyboard shortcut of Command or Control J, and with the group selected, I'm going to come here to the align, and I'm going to set this to be the 800 pixels. We will save. And now if we go ahead and refresh our page, it's going to render in the appropriate way where the page content is taking up 800 pixels. And then we can specify various areas that would either be full width or we could change them to be wide width. So if I change this to wide width and save, you will see that the blue header now is going to take up 1200 pixels. And these are responsive, so if we resize the page, they will shrink down. And if the page is wide, they will either be full width, or if it's the wide width, it will cap out at wide width. Hopefully this has given you some insight on how you can use your theme files to begin to control the layout of your pages and ensure that you can build exactly what you want.